Today we're making KegLand's all grain recipe kit, the Pulp Addiction IPA. First, jumping onto the KegLand website, there are a couple of options to consider when ordering this. Batch size, milled or unmilled grains, and you can see here there are punchy flavors you can select to add into the recipe for an additional cost, but I'm not a huge fan of these, so I'm going to leave these out. Scrolling down to the bottom of the product description and adding the single batch recipe into the Brewfather app. The grain bill for this recipe is 4.2 kilograms of Barrett Burston pale malt, 400 grams Barrett Burston Munich, 250 grams Simpson's Crystal Medium, 200 grams Gladfield Toffee Malt. For the hops, we'll be using in the boil 50 grams of Amarillo and 50 grams of Citra. The dry hop additions, we're using 50 grams of Amarillo and 50 grams of Citra. And for the yeast, we are using Lallemand Bry 97 American West Coast Ale. Included in KegLand's kit is this bag of milled grains. All the packets of hops, and lastly the 1 packet of yeast. Filling up our mash tun with 21 litres of filtered water and 7 litres for the sparging water. Setting the strike temperature to 71 degrees Celsius or 160 Fahrenheit. Time to add in the salts if you're adjusting the water profile. Now bumping that mash tun temperature down to 65 degrees Celsius or 149 degrees Fahrenheit. Slowly adding in the milled grains, giving it a good stir, making sure we mix it good so we break down any dough balls that have clumped together. Once satisfied with the consistency of the grains, adding on the recirculation arm to start pumping the wort from the bottom of the mash tun to the top. This will help with the extraction of sugars from the grains, and we'll mash for 60 minutes. 30 minutes into the mash, heat the sparging water to 76 degrees Celsius or 196 degrees Fahrenheit. The 60-minute mash is now completed, removing the recirculating arm and lifting the mash tun to strain off the grains. Connecting the hose to the sparging water boiler and rinsing off any excess sugars into the boiler until we reach a pre-boil volume of 26 litres. After reaching the 26 litres, time to remove all the spent grains. Setting the boiler to max temperature to get the wort to a rolling boil. Quickly taking a pre-boil gravity reading here, and this came out at 1.045. Adding in the hop spider to get it sanitized in the boiling wort. At the start of the 60-minute boil, adding in 25 grams of Amarillo hops. And with 5 minutes to go in the boil, adding in 50 grams of Citra and 25 grams of Amarillo. After the 5 minutes, straining off the hop spider and removing the spent hops. Taking a post-boil gravity reading of 1.051. Pumping the wort through the plate chiller to make sure it's suitable to pitch the yeast in. Sanitizing all the equipment I'll be using, as the wort can be easily infected after the boil. pitching the yeast and giving it a splash around. This will aerate the wort and help the yeast do its job. Adding in the rat pill so I can monitor the fermentation progress in the Brewfather app. Now closing up the fermenter with the lid and screw cap. Time to get this into the fermenter fridge. Setting the spunding valve to 10 psi and attaching it to the gas line on the fermenter. This will be fermented at 20 degrees Celsius for the next 12 days. 12 days later, we're going to add in the dry hop additions. And for this recipe, we'll be adding 50 grams each of Amarillo and Citra. Taking off the spunding valve and opening the fermenter. Slowly adding in the hops. Now closing the fermenter back up and adding a little CO2 in the fermenter to push out any oxygen that made its way in there during the dry hop. Then reattaching the spunding valve. Setting the fermenter fridge to 1 degree Celsius and let that cold crash for the next 3 days. Looking inside the Brewfather app and reading the rat pill data, starting off with the gravity at 1.051, the yeast went to work hard and fast for the next 3 to 4 days. Then I bumped the temperature up here for the next week to see if we could shave off any extra gravity points. And here is where I dry hopped and cold crashed for the remaining 3 days. You can see over on this side, the Brewfather app keeps a ton of stats from the brew day for homebrewing nerds like me. If you're in the market for homebrewing software to keep track of your recipes and brew days, please consider supporting the channel by using the affiliate link in the description below. You will also gain access to an endless library of other homebrew recipes. 3 days later, it's time to close transfer this beer into the corny keg. Removing the spunding valve and turning the CO2 bottle to 1 bar. Then connecting the CO2 to the gas line on the fermenter. Connecting the beer line from the fermenter to the keg. Then connecting the release valve to the gas line on the keg. Slowly releasing the valve until you hear a slight hissing sound. Once beer hits the release valve, disconnect the valve and the beer line. Now we can start force carbonating the beer. Setting the CO2 bottle to 3 bar, connecting it to the gas line on the keg and rolling it on the floor for 2 minutes. The keg is now ready to throw into the kegerator. Release the excess CO2 from the keg and connect the lines. Pouring out about 500 ml to flush out the beer line cleaner and any crap on the bottom of the keg. Here are my notes on KegLand's Pulp Addiction IPA all grain recipe kit. This IPA bursts with a bright citrus and tropical fruit aromas, delivering juicy orange, grapefruit and mango flavours, balanced by a subtle caramel and toffee sweetness. The medium body carries a pleasant lingering bitterness, while the clean fermentation ensures a crisp, refreshing finish that invites another sip. Thanks for hanging around to the end of the video, very much appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one.